Hello, so this is my solo project piece. Um, so this is a CRPG prototype based on like Baldur's Gate, Pillars of Eternity, um, Pathfinder. So it's takes a lot of inspiration from those three games in particular, and like it's heavily based on Dungeons and Dragons. So there's a credits screen, which is just like for the sake of there being a credit screen like there is in all of the other games. It just says that I did everything. There's an options menu which has the mouse panning speed, volume slider, and option to pick between orthographic and perspective camera style. This is purely for like player preference. Like this, I've received some feedback that like it might look better in orthographic. Oh no, it looks better in perspective. So instead of like opting for one specific style, I decided to add both in for like player choice, so the player can decide what they would like to actually have, like how they would actually like to view the game. Quick game works. I won't press it because I'm recording, but I'll show you at the end. So if we go into new game, it has a like placeholder loading screen that is fake at the moment, but if I figured out how to actually implement it properly, then it would be in properly. So this follows a like standard Dungeons and Dragons based like character set creation, mainly more focused towards how Baldur's Gate was, with a splash of Pillars of Eternity. So there's a banner at the top of the screen which like has the name, gender, race, class, attributes, and skills. Each one gets filled out as you progress through. So as you see, I clicked male, it displays male at the top. So there are no like inherent bonuses between picking males or females, as in like Baldur's Gate, Pathfinder, Pillars of Eternity. There's nothing, and it's the same with Dungeons and Dragons. So for this example, I'll pick male. There are multiple races. These are based on the races available in Baldur's Gate, minus half orc. But that I believe that was added in one of in like the Tales of the Sword Coast expansion, but that's not anything to do with this. So I've got humans. So they're just like the standard like race that you'll find all across the world. It's got a brief description about the race and what bonus it has. So humans have a +2 to skills. There's elves, flavor text. Elves gain +2 to dexterity, +2 to charisma, -2 to constitution. Yeah, elves would be dexterous, they'd be charismatic, but they would be less hardy as they're, yeah. I don't really know the reasoning behind it. This is just based on how it is in Baldur's Gate, because I couldn't personally think of how to give these a good feel so I just took what I know from playing those games. It's half elves, so like a mix of human and elf, so they gain like similar bonuses to elves, but slightly reduced. So they don't get the charisma bonus, but they get dexterity and a -to constitution, like elves do with the dexterity and constitution, but slightly worse, and like worse slash better in both parts. Dwarves are, yep, again some flavor text. They gain a +1 to strength and +2 to constitution. Dwarves are short, hardy folk, so naturally their dexterity would be lower for them being so short and stocky and like quite built. Gnomes have a large flavor text, which you can right click and scroll in the scroll box, or you can just scroll normally, drag the scroll bar, anything works. Gnomes gain +2 to intelligence, 1 to wisdom, and -1 to strength because they're small. They're usually quite wise. Like in Baldur's Gate, their favored class is being a wizard. So hence the intelligence bonus. But that's more focused on Baldur's Gate, less about this. But that is where the inspiration for this came from. And then there's halflings, which the scroll boxes scroll right to the top of the box, which doesn't do by default, but I made it do so. Halflings gain 2 to dexterity, +1 to constitution, -1 to strength. They're small, they're nimble, less stocky than dwarves, more agile on their feet, more like used to being in the shadows. But because of their like stature and they're not as burly as dwarves, they gain a -1 to strength. So for this example, I will be picking a dwarf to showcase the stats. So onto the class selection, there's the 6 like base classes for each of like the generic styles. In like Dungeons and Dragons and so on. So there's fighters. There's a little brief information about them. Some class features. So fighters gain a +2 to bonus to armor class. They can use any melee or ranged weapon. Can wear any armor and they can use any shield. They gain a +2 bonus to athletics. And every level they gain a 0.75 health multiplier. This applies from level 1 as well, from character creation too. So if they, for example, the player would have 10 health as a base, that is then multiplied by 0.75 to give them 7.5 health, which would be rounded up to 8. There's rangers, again, brief description, class features, so they get a +1 bonus to hit with ranged weapons. They can use any ranged weapon. They can only use one-handed melee weapons, but they can dual wield, and they can only wear armor up to studded leather, but they can use small shields. They gain a +2 bonus to survival and a 0.65 health multiplier. So again, if they had 10 health as a base, they would have 6.5 health after the modifier, after the multiplier, sorry, which would then be rounded up to 7. Thieves, a little bit of flavor text, and some class features like they can sneak attack. Oh, sorry. Sneak attack can use small one-handed weapons, so like daggers, short swords, punching knives, things like that. They can dual wield, so they could like wield 2 daggers, they could wield a dagger and a short sword, anything that would be a small form one-handed weapon. They can only use simple ranged weapons, so for example they would be able to use a short bow, whereas the ranger would be able to use a long bow. They can only wear armor up to studded leather, again similar to the ranger, they can only wear armor up to studded leather, so there are multiple like tiers of armoring in Dungeons and Dragons and Baldur's Gate and all of the CRPGs, so it's like leather, studded leather, chainmail, splint mail, plate armor. So in that list they can only wear studded leather for like as a maximum to be able to keep the mobility of the class and to stick to the class fantasy, because you wouldn't exactly see a thief walking around in full-blown plate mail armor. They can only use bucklers, so they can use very small shields that would probably be like no bigger than the size of their forearm. Thieves gain a +1 bonus to stealth and thievery and a 0.4 health multiplier per level. And sneak attack, so when thieves are behind a target and stealthed, they can attempt to make a backstab, so use the normal hit calculation, and if they hit between levels 1 and 3 they deal double damage, between 4 and 6 they deal 3 times damage, between 7 and 10 they deal 4 times damage. So all of these can crit as well, so effectively between levels 1 and 3 they could deal 4 times the amount of damage, between 4 and 6 it'd be 6 times the amount of damage, and 7 to 10 it'd be 8 times the amount of damage. There's clerics, which again break down little flavor text. They can cast divine spells, use one-handed weapons, they can use simple ranged weapons, and they can use any shield and can wear any armor. They receive a +2 bonus to religion and a 0.55 health multiplier per level. So per each rest, the cleric can cast a certain amount of spells per level per day, and they are divine spells for clerics. So the spell levels are unlocked at the spell levels are unlocked at like subsequent levels. So level 1 is at level 1. Their level 2 spells are unlocked at level 3, level 3 spells at 5, 4 at 7, 5 at 9. And spell slots per level, so as the cleric would progress in levels, they would gain more spell slots to be able to cast more spells. So here at to unlock level 2 spells, it requires level 3. So at level 3, the cleric would be able to cast 4 level 1 spells and 1 level 2 spell. This goes up progressively until level, like all the way up to level 10, where they can cast 5 level 1, 5 level 2, 4 level 3, 3 level 4, and 2 level 5 spells. Druids are similar to clerics, but they are more like nature-based. A little bit of flavor text. They can cast nature spells, one-handed melee weapons, simple ranged weapons, bucklers, and up to studded leather. They gain a +2 to nature, have a 0.4 health multiplier per level. And again, like the nature spells work the same way that the cleric spells do, so 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 for each spell level, and the spell slots are similar but slightly reduced. Yes. And then wizards are like arcane spells. They can use simple one-handed melee weapons, can use simple ranged weapons, they cannot use shields, and they can only wear cloth armor, so like robes, for example. They gain a +2 to Arcana, and they have a 0.3 health multiplier per level, so they are effectively the lowest health of all of the classes, whereas Fighter is the highest health. Again, arcane spells work the same way as a cleric and druid, so 1 is 1, 2 is 3, 3 is 5, 4 is 7, 5 is 9, and then spell slots per level work the same way as the cleric does. So for this example, I'll pick a fighter. So here we have all of the attributes. So there's strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. These are the base standard, like Dungeons and Dragons attributes, stats, whatever you'd like to call them. So for this example, I've picked a dwarf. So a dwarf had +1 to dexterity, +1 to strength, -1 to dexterity, and a +2 to constitution, as you can see here. 9 is the base value across the board. So for this example, I'm going to make a very strong and sturdy fighter who is not very smart or wise, but is quite dexterous, and he's not very charismatic either. Cool. So we have 19, 17, 20, 6, 6, 6. So the strength increases the physical damage that the character will deal by 30%. So if this was taken down, it goes into negative values. So at 4 strength, it's a -15 to physical damage. Whereas 20 is a +30 to physical damage. Dexterity works by handling the action speed in which the character will attack. So here, -24 to action speed is good. So you would attack 24% faster effectively. So if this goes down into lower values, so this can go all the way down to 2. So that's a 21 to action speed. These need fixing in the wording. I never got around to it. So yeah, action speed is how fast the character will attack. The base action speed is 1.5 seconds per attack. But a character like this dwarf character, for example, with -24% action speed, they will be attacking 0.24 seconds faster. So their attack speed would be, off the top of my head, 1.26 seconds. Constitution increases the health of the class of the character, so this character is receiving a 33% bonus to health. So that works alongside the health multiplier. So it would be 0.75 of 10 to give 8 health, which is then increased by 33%. So that's at 20, and as it goes down, you can end up having negatives to health. So that's an incentive to have stats over the minimum. So as you can see with intelligence, that is to spell damage. Wisdom is healing spells, and charisma is vendor prices. So lower numbers is usually worse than higher numbers. Spells are not yet in the game, but if I could take this further, that would be one of the next things I focused on. Along with, it would be spells, and then it would be vendors and having like shops that you can buy and sell from to actually incorporate the charisma value as well. Next up is the skill screen. So we have athletics, stealth, thievery, nature, survival, religion, and arcana. So there is a +2 to athletics from being a fighter. There's a breakdown of like what athletics does. And here it says like this skill is used in conversation and interactions with the environment and the story moments. So as if the game was to go further, for example, the character could find or the player could find a cavern that that there is an option to jump across. If the player's athletic skill is high enough, they would be able to jump across it without any problem. If it's lower, they could try, but it would be a like percentage chance of failing. But again, that is something that is not yet in the game, and that would be something I would like to do if it went further. So yeah, they all work in the ways of they can be used to interact with the environment and in conversation and during story moments. So the way I was thinking of how these work is with Pillars of Eternity. There are parts in the game where you're met with a book, which it just kind of gives you a narrative explanation of what's happening without actually having to do without the development team actually having to make this scenario happen in 3D, I suppose. So one example that I can think of off the top of my head, the players enter the cave, a book opens, and it says that this enemy has grabbed one of your companions by the foot. You can either just there's I believe there's like three options. You can either leave them and enter the cave, try and throw a rock at them, or throw your weapon at them. Throwing the rock and the weapon both require a high dexterity skill. So that's also something I'd like to tie in to be able to use attributes in the world interactions, the conversations, environment storytelling. So yeah, it is possible to fail them if the character does not or no, it's not possible to pick them if the character does not meet the requirements, but if they do, then it's an automatic success. So, but anyway, for this example, I will just put the 3 points into athletics, so we have a rather athletic fighter. So as you can see now at the top of the screen, we have a male dwarven fighter with 19 strength, 17 dexterity, 20 constitution, and 6 intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, and 5 athletics, and 0 in the rest of the skills. So if we move on to the next screen, we can select a portrait. These were generated through a website that makes portraits for Dungeons and Dragons characters. So they're not the best portraits, but there's enough for a player to pick from. I'll just pick the guy with the hood for this example. So here we have a breakdown of what the character does. So the damage range for the character is 3 to 13. So the lowest that this character could hit would be for 3 damage, and the highest is 13. The health is 12. Again, so that would have been a 10 base times by 0.75, rounded up to get 8, increased by 33%, which gives 12. Base armor class is 12. It's a 10 base plus the 2 from the fighter. Action speed is 1.26 seconds, so the character will attack every 1.26 seconds. That's down from a base of 1.5 seconds based on the dexterity skill. Spell damage, spell healing, and vendor prices aren't yet actually in the game, but they are here just to showcase that is what the player had chosen. So we can name the character, and here I will name the character Dave. And the name is also updated at the top, and the done button in the corner has lit up. So if we press done, we have another loading screen, and then this is based on Baldur's Gate and how that worked with when you enter the game. Like here, for example, it's says that this is a test to see how well this works. This will be the starting point to tell the initial story. This is stolen from Baldur's Gate, as I feel like it emphasizes the story aspect. And then the rest of this text is a random thing that has no relevance to anything. So you can scroll through it to get through it quicker. It automatically finishes the scroll animation. It also stops when it gets to the end of it. And when you're done, you can press finish, and you're into the level. So you can move the camera around with WASD and the arrow keys. Also, by holding the middle mouse button and panning around, you can rotate the camera by pressing Q and E, and holding Shift and pressing the middle mouse button down. You can also move the camera by edge panning, which works diagonally also. Yes. So to showcase the camera style that I was talking about, so this is currently on orthographic. You can set it to perspective, and it will be in the perspective style. This is so for like people who want the environment to have more detail and for it to feel less flat, I suppose. But I will, for the sake of this, I'll leave it on orthographic. So, when you enter the like tutorial at like dungeon, you're greeted by this guy stood at a campfire. You can speak to them, and it opens a dialogue interface. So we have the character's name, their actions, and then what they're saying. So this is the camera guide, and he wants to know if you would like to learn more about the camera controls. So this is exactly what I just said. You can move the camera with WASD, arrow keys, or the middle mouse button. You can rotate the camera with Q and E, or by holding Shift and the middle mouse button. You can refocus the camera on your character by pressing the F key. And by holding Tab, you can highlight all interactable elements, such as items, doors, and even myself. I hope you understand. If you forget anything, come back and talk to me again. So holding Tab, it highlights the characters, and for any NPCs, it gives them a small nameplate that is faded. And to showcase the focus the character, this is me pressing F, it focuses straight back onto the character. So as you can see here, there is also a fog of war that you sometimes bugs out, which I couldn't figure out how to fix. But the fog of war reveals as you progress through through the game. Again, here this should be not visible because they're out of the player's line of sight, but that's something that would have been fixed if the game went further. So here we have combat guide. Again, yep, this will be fixed if the game went further. So if we talk to the combat guide, so he's got his name, his actions, and what he's saying. So he's asking if you'd like to learn about combat. You can say that you already know how to fight, but if you don't, it's worth going through these. So I'll just go through them for the sake of this. So to initiate combat, click on characters with red circles around their feet. These are enemies. You can only attack characters with the red circles. Blue circles like myself are conversable NPCs, and green circles like yourself are player-controlled characters. Combat information will be displayed in the bottom right-hand corner. This contains hit rolls, damage rolls, and everything you would need to know. Holding Tab will let you see how injured your opponent is. Now go and beat that guy up. Don't worry, you'll be using your fists and he won't die. I am sure. Now show me what you can do. Right. So this is the combat log that character told you about. So if we come over here, so we can see this combat practice and injured. So if we click them, obviously it's not going to work now. If we click them, oh no. So this usually works. Okay. That's quite annoying because that normally works, but never mind. I shall carry on for the moment. So after you've fought the two people, you can come over and you'll meet the chest guide. He teaches you about chests and looting items. So chests store multiple items and you can usually contain items of importance. If you click the chest, it will open the loot interface. Simply drag things over to your inventory. You can also drag things over to the chest if you no longer want them, they will remain until you return. Sometimes enemies can drop loot bags. These work the same as chests. Time to take your class gear. You can press I to open your inventory and equip items from your inventory. Try equipping what you get. Equipment isn't finished. Oh, what? So I have no interaction at the moment. Okay, equipment isn't actually implemented yet. Here are the equipment slots, and the inventory screen with equipment screen and so on. But you can move your items around in the inventory. Hopefully I'll be able to show that off in a moment. But the inventory equipping the items doesn't work. So you can save the game, so clicking it will save it. There's no confirmation window for the first save, but if you press it again, it asks if you want to confirm to save. It states that your current progress will be overwritten. So we can quit back to the main menu. Now the continue button is lit. So if I press continue, it brings us back here, and maybe now? The attacking's working now, which is very strange, but at least it is. So here we attacked, we rolled a 1 versus the target's armor class of 1 and hit for 13. The next attack was a 5 against the target's armor class of 1 and we hit for 7. I have not disabled the console. And here the enemy has dropped a loot bag, so we can open it, and they have a longsword, which is a long sturdy blade. So we can take that, and coins, which is currency used to purchase items. So we'll take both of them. There you go, now they're in the inventory, and you can move them around as you see fit. So if you'd like to keep the coins in your bottom right hand corner, that's where you can keep them. So eventually these will be equipable, but if I could take it further, I'd probably completely rework the inventory system, because I'm not overly happy with how it is at the moment. So if we attack this guy as well, thankfully there was a critical. So, oh, 2 in a row. So Dave critically hit, the combat practice for 14. So that's 1 over our maximum hit. And so we would have actually rolled 7 damage, which had been doubled. And then in the next critical hit, we hit for 20, so that would have been a 10, which was then doubled to 20. So now if we come over here, we will actually be able to loot this chest. There we go, which also has a longsword. So we can loot that longsword too. And now we have 2 longswords and coins in our inventory. And yeah, eventually they will be equipable, but currently they are not. I believe that is everything. So I can save the game, and if we quit to the main menu, press continue, the enemies have respawned. That's something that I hadn't quite gotten around to, but the main thing was to save the character and their health and all of the stats to be able, and like the damage and everything. So that's the whole save system at the moment is purely based for the character and not anything else. But if I took this further, I would focus on making sure that the levels save after any enemies have died, so on and so forth. So here we can quit, and if we quit to desktop and reopen the project, the continue button is still lit, and we press it and we're back in the same place. However, the fog of war has recovered itself, which again is something that I would like to sort out, but the fog of war is a very rough system. But I believe that is everything for my FYP piece. Thank you.